the Wall Street Journal on March 19 published an article entitled, "When Insurers Pass Trash, Some Are Left Holding the Bag." And that some included Berkshire Hathaway. It focused on passing the workers' comp trash to, among other groups, to Cologne Re. And to make a long story short, the Assistant General Counsel for General Re, which, as I understand now, owns most of Cologne Re, said this is a classic example of an insurance company seeking growth in a very competitive market by writing business outside its area of expertise, namely within workers' comp when their area of expertise is life reinsurance. Mr. Graham went on to say, and then I'll stop, don't write business you don't understand. Second, proper controls are critical in the insurance business. Lastly, if a business opportunity appears to be too good to be true, it probably is. If this is true, could you tell us how this came about, what measures are being taken to see that it won't happen again, and what might be the ultimate cost to Berkshire Hathaway shareholders? Because
okay, those are good questions. And let's take the first one first, about the website and having a list of reference documents or something that would help you understand insurance. You sound like you understand it pretty well already. I can't think of a good book that I've read on the subject. I got my knowledge of insurance by reading, well, I got this huge head start. A fellow named Lorimer Davidson, who is now 96, spend 4 hours or so with me one Saturday morning in January 1951, explaining to me how GEICO worked. And it was a marvelous education, and it got me so interested in not only how GEICO worked, but how its competitors worked, how the industry worked, that I just started reading a lot of other reports. I guess I took one course in school on insurance. I don't remember a thing from it. I have no idea what the textbook was or anything. It had no value to me. So I never really had any background in insurance. Nobody in the family was in the insurance business. And until I talked to Davy, it just hadn't been something that crossed my mind. The only reason I was down there was because my hero, Ben Graham, was listed in Who's Who as being the chairman of Government Employees Insurance. If he'd been the chairman of, he was also the chairman of the Market Street Railway Company in San Francisco. Fortunately, I went down to GEICO instead of out to see the Market Street Railway Company. It was closer. But my own education about insurance came from just reading lots of reports. I would say that if I started the day fresh and I didn't know anything about the insurance industry to speak of, and I wanted to develop some expertise, I would probably read the reports of every property casualty company around, and I would go back sometime and I would probably get the best manuals and look at them. I would just do a lot of reading. I used to go down to the Department of Insurance in Lincoln and go through the convention reports and the examination reports. And they'd give me some little table someplace, and I keep asking for these reports. They have to go way down to the bottom of the Capitol to get them out for me, but they didn't have much else to do, so they were always happy to do it. And that's the way I learned about it. And it happened to be a productive field to learn about that way. And I really think that something akin to that is the best way now. I can't think of, you can read some analyst reports. I think you can learn something, frankly, by reading the Berkshire Hathaway annuals for 20 years and reading the insurance section. I think it'll teach you something about the economics of insurance. So I would do it by reading, and if you can find somebody that knows the business well, who's willing to spend some time talking to you about it, they can probably shorten the educational period and give you some help on that. The second question about what's the Unicover affair that Cologne Re set up a $275 million, Cologne Life, I should say, set up $275 million reserve against, first of all, I would say, for the losses to be incurred on that business. The 275 still represents the best estimate. In other words, it may be the tip of the iceberg in terms of the loss to the industry, because no one else has acknowledged any losses. This is amazing. I mean, believe me, there are plenty of other losses out there. We've said we're going to lose $275 million. I think that's a good estimate, but I think a lot of other people are going to lose they have to lose significant money. Somebody has to lose some significant money besides us on that. And so what we have reported may be the tip of the industry iceberg. I don't think it's the tip of the General Re or Berkshire Hathaway iceberg. It's our best estimate today of what that loss will be. If that estimate changes, I will let you know through the quarterly reports, or if it was really material, we'd have some announcement. But I don't anticipate that. But we'll report to you faithfully, I promise you, as to how that loss develops over time. The business, what you read makes a great deal of sense about when something's too good to be true. It usually is, and that sort of thing. That the distribution of the losses in the Unicover affair will probably not be fully settled 10 years from now. I mean, I have seen these things before in insurance and in other areas, but particularly in insurance, where there are multitudes of parties and there are allegations of stupidity, there's allegations of fraud, there's allegations of misrepresentation, there's allegations of everything. There are so many people involved, there are so many factual matters to be determined, there will be lots of litigation. It will take a long, long time to sort out the litigation. In the end, the losses will get paid by somebody. Our best estimate that we put up is $275 million. But we may find out far more in coming months and years as to the involvement of other parties, or we can find out a great many things, because there will be lots of litigation, not necessarily involving us, but that we will, even as a viewer of it, we will be learning things about what took place. Unfortunately, there have been some similar things in insurance. We were involved in something that had some similarities to this at National Indemnity 20-odd years ago, and it was very expensive to us. It didn't cost us that many millions of dollars, but it happened at exactly at the time that the stock market was down around the 600 on the Dow, and we did not know how big the losses would be, and therefore it caused us to have to be more conservative in investing in equities than would have otherwise been the case if this hadn't been hanging over our head. So a conventional accounting will never pick up the loss that we suffered in that. It was called the Omni affair, and like I said, it had some, I'm sure it had many differences too, but it had some similarities. And you know, it's distracting to have something like this that obviously there was some mix of mistakes, there's some mix of misinformation. All of that will have to get sorted out. Our best guess right now is that when it's all done, 10 years from now, 15 years from now, the $275 million will be our loss. That most certainly won't be the exact figure, but like I say, if there's any reason to revise that number upward, we'll let you know promptly. It is the nature of insurance that you get unpleasant surprises from time to time. Lowe's Corp bought CNA in the early 1970s, and just in the last few years there was a fiberboard settlement on a policy, I believe, that was written in the late 50s, and there was as I remember, $1.5 billion loss on something where the premiums were a few $1,000s. GEICO has lost, as I remember, $60 million on a book of business that was written in the early 1980s, where the total premium was less than $200,000. You know, how much of that is stupidity, how much of it is fraud, or who knows exactly, but you can get some very unpleasant surprises in insurance, and unfortunately this will not be the last one. It won't occur in the same place, it won't occur exactly the same way, but the nature of insurance is that the surprises are on the unpleasant side. It's not the kind of thing that happens when you're writing personal auto insurance or anything of the sort. But when you write business where the claims pop up 10 or 20 or 30 years later, I think we've got a claim at a small workers' comp company that we have that goes back 20 odd years, 25 years or so, and it's just popped up to life in the last year or so, and it costs real money. So it's a business where the surprises can come big and they can come late, and that will happen even with good managements. But with good managements, you'll have fewer such surprises. Charlie?
Well, that was a marvelous question. And imagine anybody asking a question of how to get educated who knows how to educate people. It's the same way you educate the dog, by rubbing his nose in it. And generally speaking, that was a dumb error. That was an amateur's mistake. It doesn't mean that General Re is suddenly full of amateurs. It was a rare lapse, just as at Berkshire we think the Omni affair was a rare lapse. I don't think we've repeated it since, have we, Warren? I can't think of a single one.
But again, we don't know that we've repeated it.
Well,
these things pop up later. No, the answer is we haven't repeated it.
Yeah. So, yes, it was a dumb amateurish error. These things do happen. We don't think it reflects a sudden lowering of the intellectual standards of General Re, which are probably the best in the world. It's just one of those things that does happen once in a while. And there's one good side to these things. It does make you more careful. It really refreshes your attention to get banged on the nose like that.
Yeah, and it remains to be seen where the costs of that will be borne, because the entire set of facts and what was committed to and all of that, it's not been resolved yet. In the Omni situation, we had significant disputes on the facts for some time, and we eventually recovered a fair amount of money that for a time it didn't look like we would recover. So the final chapter on this is not going to be written for some time, but it was appropriate to set up $275 million as a reserve in terms of what we know at this time, and that number could go up. It could also go down depending on the facts that we discover.